Cool. All right. All right. Thanks everybody for coming to this panel. It was originally a different panel, and we ended up. I got the call from Lance, who runs the panels, and he was like, "So I need help. I need a panel. Can you put something together in 2 hours?" I was like, "Maybe." So I reached out to these guys. We had 2 other people, but unfortunately they weren't able to make it. So we have Paul from Retro Game Arts filling in. He has a lot to say about this, I'm sure. So the topic is digital games that are delisted, in addition to games that get updates in the current gaming industry. So we're kind of at the point now where games are getting pulled that are digital only. There's no physical hard copy of them. So we're going to talk about them, and that's the basis of the panel. So I figure we'll introduce ourselves from right to left, and shout out to what we do on our end, our channels and whatnot. So
who's right? Audience is right or our right?
My right? Our right? Yeah. So Paul.
Hi, my name is Paul. My YouTube channel is Retro Gaming Arts. It's all about teaching people how to fix, customize, mod video game systems. I also had my own business for 2 years directly related to that. So it's a lot about, this is what I learned doing my business, this is what I've learned, this is how I did everything that I've done, and just sharing all that information. The guy that runs this convention, Chris, I did all the repairs for all his game stores for a couple years, just recently stopped. I stopped all of what I do so I can focus more directly on YouTube. That's me.
I'm Tri from My Life in Gaming. The other half of My Life in Gaming, Corey, is down at our table right now. Technically, this is our meet and greet hour, so. Well, we've been meeting plenty of people. We met lots of people yesterday. But yeah, we do a YouTube channel. We do documentaries, tech overviews, stuff like that. And this topic is something that Corey and I actually spend a lot of time thinking of, especially with, we just really enjoy physical media and, the idea of, maybe a physical release that was released well after all the patches were out. And then you can buy a disc, with complete patches and stuff, so.
My name's Shane. I'm from the channel Re-Res and Hot Take. There's 2 channels there. And I guess for both people that watch The Game Chasers, I do the opening voice. So, on today's episode of The Game Chasers. That's right.
I actually didn't know that was you until like 2 days ago.
Yep.
I didn't know that was you until just now.
There you go.
No joke.
Let me ask you a question. What was it that inspired you to do that voice? Were you into John St. John or something like that?
I just want to make fun of Billy.
Billy?
Yeah, that's
what
it.
it was?
That was it.
All right, cool.
I tried to do a voice he couldn't do.
I have been doing YouTube for 7 years now. I have a channel called Dongled. Yeah, I know. So I do a show, my main show is Dude, You Haven't Played This Game. It's a video game review show with skits, and I call it edutainment because it's educational. You learn about the games, and I go super in depth about them. I come up with wacky theories on some games that are kind of half-assed, but yeah. And it's just goofy, intentionally bad humor. So if you like having a good time and you like silly stuff, that's me. I also do a podcast called XVGM Radio, video game music podcast. It's styled like a radio show, so that's on there as well. It's also on its main site. You can get it on all your podcasters and all that stuff. And 2 other shows I do, Gaming Linguistics and Noob Repair. It's all on this channel. Noob Repair is like, if you're trying to fix stuff in your gaming collection, but you don't want to solder or don't feel like I know how to solder, but I wanted to do kind of the opposite of what Paul does, where he is doing these crazy wiring jobs and soldering and everything, and I'm just like, yo, here's how you can store some Game Boy games, or here's how you can fix your cartridge rattle, just open it up. So I did the video on that. And then Noob Repair, that's Noob Repair, and then Gaming Linguistics is I want to learn how to say the word chrono in Chrono Trigger. So I sit down with evidence from various different media that I find online, and I figure out how to say it, and then I like present it like, hey, this is how you say it. It's chrono. It's not chrono or crano or however people are saying it. So I dive into a bunch of that stuff.
I'm very relieved that that's the conclusion you came to, because I don't think I could change the way I say chrono.
I get a lot of flack for the Zebus one for Metroid. It's I used to call it when I was a kid ZBs. Yeah, and that's wrong. Yeah.
My favorite thing is that the Final Fantasy series has some inconsistent pronunciations in the voiced games, like the summon Rama. They say that in 15. In 14, they say Ramu.
Yeah. I've been working on one for a while, but I just don't have enough footage for it for Hagar. Mike Hagar from Final Fight.
Yes, Final Fight.
Yeah. Is it Hagar? Is it Hagar? Is it, I don't know, whatever. But anyways, so, all right. So what I figured we'd start, this is like super loosey-goosey, by the way. This is like, it was thrown together at the last minute, so we're just gonna talk to you guys, just chill and hang out. So I figure we'll start from right to left. What's one game that you know is digitally delisted and there's no plans at this time to bring it back that you would like to see come back?
I don't know of any.
Paul, you're making me look bad.
What do you want me to do? Lie and make something up?
Yes. No, you know one. What about Marvel vs. Capcom?
I don't think that exactly fits your criteria, but you guys know the story behind Marvel vs. Capcom 2?
Yeah.
They didn't have the licensing rights for the Hulk. They destroyed the entire game. They pulled it from all the shelves. So you only had like a 3-week window to buy it, and like around Christmas time.
Well, the PS2 version, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Xbox version. Or was it just the PS2 version?
I don't know. What do you guys?
It was the PS2 version.
It was just the PS2
So it was-
version, right?
Yeah. That's crazy. Right?
And like how that's why that game was like $100 for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
You guys ever heard the story of Thrill Kill?
Yeah.
Yo, have you guys ever played Thrill Kill?
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I wish I knew more about how it turned into Wu-Tang, but it was like the same game engine. I don't really know too much about that, but I wish I knew more. Really, what I could talk about is how all the digital ones, how the digital release games, about how we're going into that. Basically, it's all going to be digital, and it's going to turn into like a streaming service like Netflix, but for gaming, and about how that is really just going to hinder. It's really against us because you can watch movies on Netflix, but you don't own them. You know?
Right.
But I don't want to get into that because I'll go on for a while.
I mean, one example I can think of is a trio of examples, which is the Rebirth series on the WiiWare service on the Wii. That's Gradius. Is it Gradius or Gradius?
I think it's Gradius.
I say Gradius.
Gradius.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even know what I say. Gradius 3, or Gradius Rebirth, Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth, and Contra Rebirth. Those are...
Gradius 5. There's a voiceover at the very beginning
Oh.
that says Gradius.
Okay. Oh, that's one that I may have to pull that. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
I think Corey says Gradius, but I've always said Gradius. Huh?
Yeah.
I've not played the Gradius one because I'm not a big shmup guy, but I have played Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth and
Such a
Contra
good game.
Rebirth. And those were made by M2, which is
Yep.
kind of interesting because Corey and I did a documentary on them very recently. You can find that on our YouTube channel. We actually visited them in Japan. And
That's a great documentary if you guys haven't seen it.
It's unique because they're mostly known for making very good emulations of old games, and not just emulations, but also like seamlessly adding in cool features that arguably make them the definitive version of those games. You might want to actually play Phantasy Star 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the PlayStation 2 rather than on the original hardware because of the cool features that they added.
Save states and stuff.
They added these modes where you don't have to grind as much and stuff like that. Yeah. So
What about the glitch when you get like at a certain level and everything goes haywire?
that I'm
They
not
fix
I'm not sure about. Corey probably knows more about that because he's the Phantasy Star guy. But I'm not yet a Phantasy Star guy because I've only played the first one. I intend to get to the others, but I just haven't done it yet. But yeah, so it's unique because they are. Those were games that M2 was able to show that we're not just emulation masters, we know how an old game should be designed because we're big fans of these old games. We know what makes them tick, and they made really excellent Castlevania and Contra sequels for the Wii with their own flavor. And it's not just those games are delisted. All the games on the whole Wii online service, you cannot buy anything, you cannot re-download anything. Your only way to really get access to those is if you illegally download it if you didn't already have it. And if you transfer it to your Wii U, and the Wii U's scaling of Wii games isn't that great. Well, you'd like them back on your Wii, but you can't transfer them back. So that's kind of unfortunate. But that whole service is, I think, like the poster child for why digital games are kind of scary for people like us who want to continue looking at these games and researching these games and sharing these games.
And playing these games.
Yeah. I mean, you can't, I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm probably just going to play this one time anyway. It's not that big of a deal if it goes away. But, in 15 years, you might wish you could learn more about it or play it again
And just to interject before we get to Shane, I'm recording this, and I know that YouTube people, because this is going up on my channel, I know that people looking at you, YouTube, you're going to say, but why can't you just emulate it? Because we shouldn't have to. I mean, yeah, that's an option. We can emulate it, but emulation doesn't always get everything right. Sometimes emulation gets things...
It's close.
It gets super close. And I don't personally have a problem with emulation. I use emulation, but I prefer not to. So I'd rather legally pay for all the hard work that the developers and publishers and all these people that are working on these games do than steal. Which it is what it is, but anyways.
If you can't go back to the original source on the original system, you can't be sure that your emulation is correct.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, anyways. Shane? Yeah.
So I have been buying digital games since it started, and there's been problems with that. There's been a lot of games I've bought that you just can't get anymore because they've pulled them from stores, stuff like that. I was a huge fan of The Simpsons Arcade in arcades. And then when they finally released that on the Xbox 360, on Xbox Live, that game got pulled. I have a 360 at home that I have in a nice lead-lined box, prepared, just the way I like it. Whenever I have the inkling just to play that again, I can just pull it out and play it once and then put it right back in. But that's the kind of thing you have to do now. If you want to get that again, you can't. Microsoft has been getting better with stuff with the Xbox One, where you can get some digital download games from the 360 forward, but the moment a license gets lost, just like you're talking about with Marvel, suddenly it's out the window. And now, I think Disney owns The Simpsons because they must buy everything.
Because it's Fox. Yeah,
That's right.
That's true.
So now there's more issues you got to get through. But it's not just the whole games. I remember this example. This is a very extreme example. The game is called The Saboteur. It was released on the Xbox 360 by Pandemic before they went out.
Yeah, I remember that game.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you can still buy the game. You can still play it, right? It's on the 360. It's not, and I think some other systems too. I think it's on PC. There is a code that you got in the box when you bought the game for the first time. It basically makes all the women nude. It's just a thing they did. I don't know why. It was a thing that was included. But that's why there's such a high rating on that game, because they had that code in the box. EA turned off the servers for that code, so now that patch isn't there. Now I'm just saying, I didn't need to play the game that way. I'm not obsessed about that, but there are people out there that want the full uncensored experience, and that's gone forever now, unless EA turns them back on, and that is not happening anytime soon.
So what if you downloaded it already? Because I actually remember buying that game, and I remember downloading that code.
Yes.
But I think I deleted it because I wasn't that
Now it's
big a
gone.
fan of the game.
Yeah, so you won't be able to re-download it.
Even though I downloaded it.
If you have it,
Yes.
you're good. But if you can't put that code in to get that, because it wasn't on Xbox's servers, it was
Right.
on EA servers. It was an
Oh.
internal thing. The problem is when we think about digital games, we probably think about just a solid copy of a game, a digital file that resides somewhere. But it's the online aspect of online always games and stuff, where aspects of those games get turned off and the whole experience of it gets lost. Tron 2.0 had a Intel pack of maps that if you had an Intel processor, you could play those maps. The stupidest things they did, like you needed a single processor to get that, and then those maps were gone if you didn't have that Intel processor. Or if you had an NVIDIA graphics card, you could get really cool glowing colors, but if you had an AMD, they threw you out to the wolves. Those kind of things suck. It's restrictions for games that disappear and you can never get them again.
Yeah.
Isn't that all PlayStation 3 DLC? Wouldn't you say that once Sony shuts down their entire servers for PS3, they're eventually going to,
Oh yes,
Yeah.
they will.
and then all the DLC for all of those games is just gone forever?
Yeah, like I know we would like to make fun of Nintendo sometimes for not really understanding online ever at any point.
Yeah.
Despite the fact they're like one of the first companies to do it. This is Satellaview and all that stuff, even with the Famicom. But what you get with Sony is a company that, boy, they try. They really do, don't they? I think it was just like last month that they finally turned on the ability to change your freaking account name.
Yep.
Like, it's insane. It's like they don't grasp how to make that stuff just work. But, yeah, they suck at it. And one day when they turn off the servers, everything's going to disappear. And, yeah.
We were just talking, to add to that, Dry and I were just talking on the way up, Gravity Rush 2, they shut down all the servers and the game's only been out for 2 years?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and I loved the first one, and I bought the second one, and it was one of those things where I was like, I'll get to this eventually. And then I heard the servers were shutting down, and in order to unlock like all the costumes, most of like the trophies and all that stuff, you had to play the online component. And if you didn't play it by a certain date, it was shut down. The servers were shut down. That content's lost forever. It's not pushed automatically through an update or anything like that. It's just, you had to do this. It was time consuming. And so the community actually gathered up and formed a page on PlayStation 4 on the system itself. So an online community. And they were like, hey, add all these people on your list. And if you had those people on the list, then you'd be able to work with them. You would see them playing or whatever, so you could reach out to them and be like, hey, I'm going to do this challenge, I'm going to do that challenge, blah, blah, blah. And I did that so I could unlock like most of it, but they ended up pushing out the shutdown for the servers by like 2-3 months, and then they just shut them down. So I think it was June of last year that they just completely turned off this server for a main franchise game that was a Sony developed game, and it's gone forever.
And that's really part of a single player mode.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not, I mean, you interact with other people, but, you know, but that is tied to getting a complete single player experience. And I guess kind of the thing that annoys me about a lot of digital games, I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with digital games, because like you said,
Sure.
about like The Simpsons, like, you know, so in some of these games with difficult licenses, honestly, you know, I do count it as a small miracle that those games got really re-released in any form whatsoever. I mean, that is actually great, and I don't have an inherent problem with digital games, but it kind of bothers me how widely it has been embraced by both the game companies and, you know, as I've been reading, you know, game websites, you know, some of the journalists on those sites they've just kind of accepted this, and they're like, oh, you know, I mean, I'm not going to be playing this game again in, you know, 10, 15 years. It kind of bothers me, because it's like they're just accepting it as like disposable entertainment,
Yeah.
right? And it's so
Yeah.
much more important to me. It's like, oh, well, I'm not going to care about this in 15 years. Well, why do you care about it now then? Like, I don't know. It's just the way my brain is wired. Like, I want to understand like the complete history and
Yeah.
everything, and I want to be able to go back and look at it again.
Do you
know?
set your books on fire when you're done reading them? No. Okay, let's keep the games going for a little bit longer.
It's a good analogy.
There's, it's like if you think you're safe with modern video game consoles to scare you, you're not. How long ago did the PlayStation VR come out?
What was it, 3 years ago?
Five.
Yeah, 3, 5,
3 or
4.
Yeah.
It's not that long, okay? I think many of us are old enough to remember when it came out. If anyone's 4, you're here. Wow. But like, this is really annoying. We were reviewing a whole bunch of PlayStation VR games, and we went and picked up a bunch. And one of the ones we got was Star Blood Arena. Star Blood Arena no longer works. Like, you can't turn it on, you can't play it, you can't buy it. It's been pulled from store shelves, it's been pulled from online.
Wow.
Because there is a single player, like portions of it, but what they decided to do was have that all hinge on a server. And apparently this game did so bad that Sony was just like, you know what, let's turn it off. And it's not that old. I thought, well, the game must completely suck. So I turned it on. It was like a week before they turned off the servers or whatever it was. And there was all of this stuff. Beautiful animations, good voiceover work, complex visuals. Yes, it made me throw up when playing it because VR games tend to do that. But the problem is that the game cannot be experienced by anybody anymore because you simply can't turn it on. That's a joke for a game that's like less than 5 years old.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
If, like, I see a big correlation to basically everything that you guys have said and with regular life in society. If you look at our society right now, everything is instant gratification. If you look at all social media, I mean, Instagram, it's called instant is in the time. You look at Amazon Prime, you want to buy anything, you get in a day. We're so used to just having things in the moment and not actually having any longevity. All of our cell phones, every single cell phone in this room is going to last 2 years, and you have to buy a new one, at best. Everything that we do, everything that we have is in the moment, and that's just the nature of our society right now. So why wouldn't it be the same way with games? Like you said, what are we going to play this game once and that's it? That's probably how they're thinking.
Yeah.
And that may be true. That may be true that you just play it one time, but like, you know, especially, I have a perspective as someone who makes like content on YouTube, you know, it's like, well, I need to access this game again because I want to show it in the future and stuff like that. You know, maybe every game, will you revisit it? Not necessarily, but I bet a lot of people in this room probably have a story very similar to mine. You know, when I got the Super Nintendo, I just stopped playing my NES. I didn't think I had any interest in that.
Yeah.
And then when I got my N64, and that was around the time I started getting the internet, and I was like, man, there are a lot of cool looking NES games I never played. I got another NES, I built up my collection again, and it's probably my favorite system to this day, but in that span of time, like who's jumping up and down about the PS3 and the Xbox 360 right now? I mean, that's maybe starting to come back a little, but it's always like the immediately preceding generation, you feel like, I just don't care about that, and I don't see myself caring about that again in the future, but you will.
I gotta wonder if Nintendo had done what they intended to do and put Famicom capabilities in the Super Famicom, I wonder if that would have been different.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because, I mean, Sega was on board with it. They had the power adapter for the, so you could play Master System games. I wonder if they did that with the Super Famicom so you could play Famicom games and did it with the Super NES so you could play NES games. I wonder if that would have changed.
If that would have changed.
It would have been, yeah.
It would have changed like the disposability aspect of the previous generation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but I think with digital games, I mean, I think it's a very similar analogy, and you know, even though it's a different media and a different time.
The thing is, Sega doing it doesn't necessarily correlate how impactful Nintendo would have done this. So, okay, show of hands, who here actually owned an original Sega Master System? Now NES.
Yeah,
That's why it would have been more important.
For
those watching at home, way more people put up their hand for NES.
Two for Master System and almost everybody in the room.
If the
for
SNES had the ability to play NES games or Super Famicom games, it would have had a huge impact because people would not have seen a lesser value of their older games.
Yeah.
And it would have moved forward, I think. Well, until you got the N64, then things got really spicy. But
it got weird.
you know, before that, it was
So my pick.
PlayStation 2.
Yeah,
PlayStation
that's true.
2 is absolutely huge.
Yeah.
You can play PS1 games backwards perfectly.
Yeah.
I don't think it hindered the success of PlayStation 2, #1 most popular game system of all time. 155 million units sold. Play your PS2 game or PS1 games on it. It works wonders in that situation.
The only games that do have problems, I think, are rhythm-based games. There's a slight delay with that.
That is true.
Yeah.
But you get, if you go downstairs, probably throughout the whole weekend, folks, you've probably been seeing a lot of people carrying PlayStation 3 original fat models that run all the old systems, and you see them, they're so happy, they finally got the system that plays everything, and they're crying a little bit because they wasted a lot of money to get it. But that's the deal, right? Those systems are valuable because people have the ability to go back and play their old games, and they don't have to worry about the digital downloads of the future.
Yep, and they don't have to mess with any of these like newer cables too, like for the PS2. Like I recently bought the, what is it, the pound cable.
Oh yeah.
And even though on your TV it stretches the picture, when you're capturing footage, like specifically if you have a YouTube channel, you'll be able to capture the footage so you can play PS1 games, because you can't capture if you're playing on a PS2 and you're trying to capture PS1 footage, 9 times out of 10, if it switches down to 240, I think it's 240p, it drops the signal and it just goes completely black, so you can't capture the game footage. You need this cable, so I bought it specifically for that so I could capture footage. But my pick's gonna be Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Yep. Yeah, that's a problem.
And the creator of Scott Pilgrim himself, Brian O'Malley, I think his name is.
That's right.
Brian O'Malley or something. Yeah. He actually said it's his life goal to get the rights back so he can get that game back for players now. So.
The main issue is that it's owned by Direct. It was meant to be a movie, and Paramount's not interested in re-releasing the movie. And Universal.
Right.
Universal owned the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, Universal owns the movie rights.
Tied to the movie, that's the main thing. It's
Yep.
being re-released.
You know, another game that is out right now, and you can buy it as far as I know it. It only came out like 1, maybe 2 years ago. A game that is very much in possibly a similar danger. Actually, I haven't played it myself, but it's from a company I'm a big fan of, and it looks pretty good. It looks a heck of a lot better than the movie, which was terrible. Is The Mummy Demastered?
Oh yeah.
Terrible
yeah.
movie. Paramount probably wants to forget it ever happened. You
Yeah.
know, they were
The
playing
Tom
to
Cruise
start.
one, right?
They were playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
They were playing to start like a cinematic universe around it. I don't even know if they're still going forward with that, because that
Yeah,
movie,
they walked away
that
from that
movie
one
was
too.
so bad, and so they probably want to like bury it. So
Yeah.
who knows if The Mummy Demastered, which is this cool looking, like I believe it might be sort of a Metroidvania.
It's way forward. It's
It is
Metroidvania,
way forward, knows retro games. I haven't played it, but I hear it's very good.
Yep.
Maybe I should go ahead and get it, because that does feel like a game that could disappear any year now.
Yeah, that's true. A whole series of games similar to the WiiWare that nobody talks about is the Xbox Live. What are they called?
Oh, was it that game show?
The whole. What's it called? The indie games. Yeah.
Oh, right.
The
yeah.
indie games are completely shut down, and there's a handful of games in there that are really good. There's this game Alpha Squad, which had music from Stemage, the guy from Metroid Metal. Great soundtrack, and it's lost to time. I have the physical soundtrack because I bought it off of him at MagFest like years ago, and I actually wanted to go check out the game, so I downloaded the demo for it. But because they shut down Xbox Indie, you cannot download any of those games, even if you previously downloaded them, from what I understand.
Yeah.
So, and that's, there was other games, DLC Quest, anybody ever play those? I don't know if those are on Steam or not, but
Some
both.
of them are.
DLC
Yeah.
Quest, hilarious, those games.
Some of them are still up, some of them aren't.
Yeah.
But like, I think the worst, I think everyone can have this experience on this. Everyone who has a cell phone right now, is this your first digital phone? Have you gone through a couple, or are you still on your very first one? Are you like rocking the original iPhone? You got to? Okay. The apps and programs on these phones are so fragile. If a company walks away and stops updating it, you may have a phone game that just doesn't work anymore, and
Yep.
there are tons of games on these phones. Some of them are server bound, some of
Yeah.
them are like downloadable copies, but the biggest deal was, for the longest time, cell phones had like a little button at the bottom. Then when they got rid of that phone button, and it just became a much wider experience, a whole bunch of games stopped working. And then those games didn't get updated because some of the developers were like, well, all these games have to be given away for free to make any sense now, so why would I go back and update a game no one's buying anymore? So tons and tons and tons of games just disappeared practically overnight.
I got another good one to bounce off that. Do you remember phones like the LG Envy 2
Yes.
and
Yeah.
3? So those were really good gamer phones at the time, back in 2007, 2008, because you could buy games and play them on a full gamepad for the most part, like with keypad and everything. And Konami released a ton of original games that never got released anywhere else. Castlevania got one, Metal Gear got one, and the Metal Gear game was really, really good. The Castlevania game, not so much. The Metal Gear game was really good. I enjoyed
Metal
playing.
Gear.
Yeah, it was fully 3D. It was very clunky and slow to play, but those never got ported or released anywhere else.
Now, I would be curious, you know, maybe the audience and the people up here, I have a totally different perspective with movies. I love movies. I love watching movies. I'm definitely more passionate about games than I am movies, but I like to watch movies. I don't really buy Blu-rays anymore.
No.
I just don't have a lot of interest in it. I am okay with streaming movies. Yeah, if you had a Blu-ray, you wouldn't see like the compression artifacts and dark scenes and stuff like that.
Right.
But I'm just not as passionate about movies as games, so I'm willing to make those concessions. I'm not like overly worried if I'm going to lose access to X, Y, or Z movie in the future. I guess there's examples like the non-George Lucas versions of Star Wars,
Yeah, sure.
you know, that are quite difficult to get a good quality version of. But outside of small examples like that, it's like I'm just not overly worried about movies. If you know, Netflix drops a movie, yeah, you know, I mean, they do that all the time, it's sad, but it's like, I'm just not going to get bent out of shape about. Games I feel very different about. I want to have those, I want to own those, I want to have some sense of ownership over them. And it's just where my personal priorities are, but it's interesting that in one field of media, I'm not so sure about this, and in the other, I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's fine.
I think for movies, the difference is, okay, so for a video game, an NES, playing an NES game is going to be the best way to play that NES game. Everything else beyond that is emulation. They'll get close, but sometimes they're going to miss a note, a sound, maybe the gameplay is going to be a little bit slow. When it comes to movies being released on home video sucked. For the longest time, they couldn't figure out how to get the highest quality, and they continued to suck. In some instances, you watch Alien on VHS, it's spooky, and that's great. I watched Planet of the Apes 2 on a Super 8 tape for some reason, and it was the weirdest experience. But like, that stuff is gone. There's a Super 8 version of Alien that's like 20 minutes, I think. And it's like, it's a whole movie, it's cut down, but like they cut a lot out. And when the dark scenes happen, you can't see anything. So you really gotta imagine what that alien looks like. And nowadays, even the streaming services, the quality of the stream is almost surpassing the quality of the home video format.
Yeah,
and we're
that's
getting
true.
closer to the point when 8K streams are gonna be a thing, and possibly there might not be a media format that's hardbound that will have that kind of quality. The games, we got Stadia to look forward to.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's, I literally cannot imagine anyone wants that but game companies. Like, no one is going to be excited, like, yes, I just want my game to come to me. I want input lag. I don't want any sense of ownership over this.
Can you imagine playing Mega Man?
No.
Just imagine playing Mega Man.
I mean,
I can't imagine playing anything.
Now,
Yeah.
I am...
Give them ideas.
I'm receptive. It's not for me per se, but I'm receptive to concepts like Xbox Game Pass,
Yep.
where you do download it and play it on local hardware. That makes a playable experience. It's not for me, but I think that is a good value service for the people for who, like me, movies are great but somewhat disposable. If they have that same perspective about their video games, that's okay. That's a great service for you. And I'm glad that exists because you can still buy those games separately, you know, and own them if you want. But kind of speaking to that idea of, you know, Xbox and how they're doing that, something that kind of helped me a lot with my concerns about, you know, the future of games and, you know, going digital and concerns I have with that was when the Xbox One was initially announced and everything was bad, like bad.
Yeah.
And at that time, the PlayStation 4 was announced, but we didn't know a lot about it. We didn't even know what it looked like. They showed off knack, you know. And
Best
it was
game
just-
on the PlayStation 4, by the way. If you don't, get a copy downstairs.
I wouldn't call it the best game, but it's way underrated.
What game?
What?
What game?
Knack.
Knack,
Knack.
Game of the Year.
Oh, really?
People
Yes.
hate it. But it's like, you know what? It's a fun game. If you like playing like old platforms on like PlayStation 1. It's basically a PlayStation 1 platform, but with PlayStation 4 graphics. It's great. Anyway, and during that span of time, it was about Xbox One was announced, everything is bad, everything is online, you have basically no ownership of your game. It's really bad. And I'm like, there was concerns that Sony has no incentive to not do exactly what Microsoft is doing, because they will probably, if people are just forced into this ecosystem, like they'll still want to play games. So, but then Sony just blew the doors off of everything. Nothing like Microsoft. They had to backpedal, and now the Xbox One. I mean, I like the Xbox One. It's a good system, but the original vision for it was very bad. But during that span of time where we were very uncertain, like Xbox One, PlayStation 4, this is sounding really bad, I kind of had this revelation that, like, you know what? There are already more games out there that I would like to play that I will never have all the time to play. And I just kind of had this revelation that, you know, if one day the game industry goes in a direction that I just don't have any interest in, I'm at peace with that. I don't want that to happen, but I am at peace with that.
Yeah.
So even if things do go super all digital, you know, games as a service is being pushed really hard right now. The most popular games right now are stuff like Fortnite and whatnot, that there will be nothing to do in those games if those servers are down one day.
Yeah.
You know what, though? That's okay. I'm starting to see that, you know, maybe AAA game development is moving away from what I want. I still like the single-player experiences that they do have, but if in 15 years it's not what I want, that's okay. Go downstairs and buy you some games and it'll last you.
There's one saving grace. First off, the anime, or the movie thing, anime, I was going to bring up. A lot of anime, especially certain dubs or certain specific versions of dubs, are kind of getting lost to time. Like the original Sailor Moon dub, they redid the dub. So if you loved the original as a kid and you don't like the newer one, that's it. And those are harder to find. So I would say that kind of stuff is
Fragile.
Yeah. But like I collect movies, but like I don't collect everything. I just collect stuff I really, really enjoy. So to answer that, but I was going to bring up updates to games is the biggest thing right now that I think is really going to be an issue. And I think there's one saving grace, and that's companies like limited run games. And people have their opinions on limited run as far as their collector's editions go, because they only do a certain amount, like 1,000 or 2,000 or 4,000 or whatever. But now they're doing open pre-order on almost everything, except for those.
At least things that have a Switch version. Switch is always open
Switch is
pre-order.
always pre-order.
And if there's a PS4 version sold at the same time, it will also be open pre-order. But otherwise, most of the time, PS4 games are a certain limited quantity. But I've had relatively few instances where I've had trouble getting what I wanted. But there have been a few times.
But those games are made so that even if you buy the game 10 years from now, you won't have to update it, like all the other AAA games nowadays.
Yeah.
So if you buy like Call of Duty, I don't know, what are they on, like 15 or something like that? You buy Call of Duty 15, Back in Black, I don't know what they're called. You are gonna have to go through what, like 10 gigs worth of updates, blah, blah, blah. You're not gonna get any of that. All the map packs, like look at Halo 2. It released that like map pack disc, which you could, I guess, still use, but you can't play it online. So that right there, all those original Xbox games, can't play them online. So we're already starting to see, even with like the Dreamcast, you're going to start seeing, and already with the Dreamcast, you may see this. If you go online, you can find Dreamcast online websites that are devoted. They're very small servers, but people can play like stuff. I don't think you can play Choo Choo Rocket, because I don't think that was Ethernet based.
You can play Phantasy Star.
Fantasy Star.
Fantasy Star online. You can get a Raspberry Pi.
You wouldn't want to do that because, it was always a matter of when you were on the original server, you had the PK errors and people messing up your save files. You wouldn't want to step into that.
On the original Dreamcast community, like back when I had a Dreamcast day one, everyone was going online, having fun with it.
Yeah.
people were making games for the VMU.
Yeah.
That entire community just evaporated overnight.
Yeah, that's true.
And that kind of sucked, because I remember somebody made, not the best version I've ever played, a demake of Grand Theft Auto, the first one, on VMU. Well, the problem was, I was a kid, and I was like, I can take Grand Theft Auto wherever I go, and I show it to a friend, and it's like, you just push a button, it does the same thing over and over again. I know, but it's there! It was so cool. But, stuff like that, you're just never gonna see, and that really sucks, but yeah.
Have you guys heard of Neo Geo Dev Team?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, NG Dev Team, they make some good games. Didn't they make that game that recently came out on the Switch?
oh really? I don't know.
No. What was it?
Gunlord.
Gunlord. Yeah, they released
yeah,
that. That's that metal. No, not metal.
Turrican.
Turrican.
It was like
It's like
You may
Turrican.
want to use that guy's mic, because it's like, it's cutting off.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah.
Neo Geo Dev Team ended up porting not a lot of their games. They ended up porting some of them to the Dreamcast, so you could actually go and buy these games for the Dreamcast. Neo Geo, they keep their games under wraps. The ROM's not released in any way, so you actually have to buy the physical cartridges for like $500.
Yeah.
But you have the budget option of going to the Dreamcast, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
The Dreamcast was a lot cheaper.
There's a big Dreamcast community now. There's a company called Josh Prod that releases physical games, and they're like either Neo Geo games or like entirely new games that are made for the system. So, yeah.
I feel like a lot of this, when you mentioned Call of Duty, I don't, everybody's a gamer. So many people play games, so many people that you would never expect play games, but there's so many different types of gamers out there. There's so many different levels of appreciation for different things. And I feel this whole streaming service and this whole digital service is specifically targeted and catered to one type of gamer, or a large population of one type of gamers, where the people who every single year a new Call of Duty comes out for, I don't know what, you get a different gun, you get different armor, I don't know. But you buy the same game every
Nobody
year.
played Call of Duty. It's not bad. I play it. It's,
I played World at War.
I played the World War II one at my buddy Rhodey's house. He's downstairs, he's got a booth. It was fun, but I was like, this was a lot of fun to play with my buddy Rhodey today. I don't think I'd ever want to play it again. But I had a great time. But like also like a lot of the sports games, I'm not into sports unless it's NFL Blitz. I would play that all day.
Not even double dribble.
Only Blitz.
I know
Or
a guy
NBA
who likes
Jam.
double dribble. These are the honest
But
man.
the sports games, they just update the rosters of the team members each year, but it's the same game essentially. I feel a lot of these streaming services more catered towards a lot of people who play games like that, because I hear a lot of people, like at my regular job, they're saying, man, I don't want to go and get the new Madden. It's the same game, just spend $60 to change some names. And these people are the type of people who play all sorts of other games, so I feel maybe this streaming service is catering to that more mainstream.
It was, I think it was Madden. This just happened too. It was the latest version of Madden. They looked into the bandstands with the camera, and they noticed that it was the old logo from the previous game still up on the bandstands. They didn't realize to change that, and apparently there's a lot of things they didn't change too. People were really angry. But
It's actually hilarious.
But like right now with digital games, there are companies that are doing it really, really well for preservation's sake. GOG.com, best site. Get DOS games, get whatever games you want, and you get digital files you can keep anywhere that are DRM free, and it's the best way to play those games. And to like, if they're even giving away or not giving away, but selling new games that have the exact same kind of tech on it, so that I've got all these game files. It's like, hey, GOG.com is probably going to be around for a very, very long time, only because they're associated with CD Projekt Red, so it's basically like the same company. But yeah, the way that they do stuff is great, but when it comes to Stadia, that's not going to be the same case.
That's an interesting point about GOG, because what people like to, even get like a individual flash drive for that just one game, and just like almost as if it was its own cartridge. But I think something that a lot of people might not think about that is potentially a little concerning in terms of trying to preserve and back up our digital games to make sure we don't lose access to them in the future. And this is something that I am not necessarily an expert on, and in fact, no one's really an expert on because we don't fully know the extent of the reliability of flash media. But you think about like Switch games, games, 3DS games, those games are stored on a form of flash media. You know, the chip inside is a flash media based chip. Whereas like, you know, NES, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, you know, all those older cartridge based systems, they use what they call a mask ROM. And that is data that was made for no other reason than to be Super Metroid or whatever. Whereas a flash chip, they make a bunch of them and they flash, you know, this chip could be Mario Odyssey or it could be Breath of the Wild, and you know, whichever one goes down the assembly line becomes that game. So the point is, mask ROMs, extraordinarily reliable thus far. Someday they'll probably decay and not hold their data anymore, but it's believed that flash media is not going to hold data as long as mask ROMs have. So will that be like 30 years from now? We don't know. So these physical Switch games we're buying now, let's be optimistic and hope that, you know, they outlast us, but we don't know. So if you're, you know, backing up, making backups of your games from a service like GOG, or you're hoping to have some sort of reliable media for your PlayStation 3 games, you know, that is something to maybe think about and do a little more research on, like what is going to be the most reliable long-term storage.
A little random little fact. PlayStation 2 memory cards, PlayStation 1 memory cards, they can read and write approximately 250,000 times, and then they're dead. Obviously, if you get a like a knockoff, like a Nyko branded memory card, the components they use are cheaper, so that read and write number is a little bit lower, so those will die a little bit sooner. And the official ones is the ones where I get the 250,000. So I have PlayStation 2 memory cards, PlayStation 1, 20-year-old memory cards. I have some that still work. I have some that are completely dead, where I've actually had to take the actual, just out of curiosity, bored one day, take the actual chip off of one, and then take a working memory card and put it on the other, swap them to see like what components are dead, just trying to figure it out. Because I was bored one day, and come to find out that it's actually the chip on there that reads and writes is the one that doesn't read and write anymore. So taking that into consideration 250,000 times, read and write, versus a Switch game 20 years from now, you probably have some that have been played so many times. Think of speedrunners. How many times do they have to play a game to get to where they are at speedrunning?
Yeah, that's
60,000 times? I don't know, I just made that number up, but they have to play those games a lot. So if you want to put this to the test and see if a Switch game's going to die, let's get some speedrunner to beat one real quick.
So I mean, that could actually be, you know, if you were to think about it in another way, that could be an argument for digital distribution over physical distribution, because it would be harder to make a duplicate or backup copy of your physical game versus, you know, GOG. You could move it from one flash drive to the other, and it's not, I don't believe it's just the number of times it's written. I believe it's also like, there's also sort of a unknown time limit on it as well, I think. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways of looking at this, and it's anyone's guess as to what is the true long-term preservation. I mean, you know, some people are like, oh, I'm so glad this came to Steam, it's preserved forever, and I'm like,
Steam could go down any day.
I don't know if that's true.
If Valve
but
doesn't make another game, I mean,
Half-Life 3?
Yeah, like Half-Life 3. When's the last time
Digital
they made-
only edition?
They made a trading card game that no one played, right? Wasn't that the last thing they did?
I thought people liked that, but I don't even know.
So I figure we'll do questions in just a minute. There's three other points I wanted to bring up, and then we can go, if you have any additional stuff, then if we have time, questions. 3DS, there's a game called Dead or Alive Dimensions. There were downloadable costumes that you could only get for a very limited amount of time. And I owned that game and I downloaded almost all the costumes, because what they did was they put blasts out like on a, I think it was either a weekly or a bi-weekly or bi-monthly or something like that basis. And they would eventually release all these costumes for the Dead or Alive characters. And they ended up, and these were exclusive costumes you couldn't get anywhere else. You couldn't go to a store and buy them or anything. It was digital only. And eventually they shut the servers down, and you weren't able to get them. So if you lost your cart, like I did, where I lost my entire 3DS on a trip, I was going somewhere and I lost my entire 3DS, lost all my games, or all the games that I had in the pouch that I was carrying it in, and I lost that Dead or Alive game. I ended up immediately going out and buying the Dead or Alive game, and the servers were still open, and I was able to download, I think, maybe 3 or 4. But the thing is, it was pushed from Tecmo, I believe, or Nintendo. So those are lost to time. They will never, that's not a complete game anymore. You will never be able to get those again. The other flip side of the coin is retro, well, physical only, I guess you could say. Famicom disk system. So in Japan, there's a severe problem with Famicom games, especially if you're buying them secondhand through like eBay or stuff like that, where you may get a game, let's say Castlevania, like Akamajo Dracula. So you order the game on eBay, you're excited to get it, you pop it into your Famicom disk system, and it's baseball.
Yep.
What
I
the
had
reason?
3 or 4 baseball games that were supposed to be actual good games.
So that is an example of kind of like retroactive like rewriting, because those discs were able to be rewritten. So people would bring them to these little kiosks and they'd be like, oh, I want baseball. Boom, put Castlevania in, get baseball out, and then that never could get rewritten. So yeah, so the other one I was gonna say is Xbox original expansion discs. So they didn't have any online store, so they would release these like exhibition discs.
Halo 2 map pack.
Yep, Halo 2 map pack. The other one that I found out about recently, because I was looking into reviewing this game, was RLH, Run Like Hell, and they released another like skimpy costume where you could play as the female character, the lead female character, and she's just in a bikini, and that you only can get that if you find that disc somewhere on online or whatever. So that's kind of a weird example of not getting a complete game because this is like an extra bonus thing, and the only way that you can get it is through this like disc. That's like bonkers to me, that you would need to find this like exhibition disc. So I don't know. What else?
Just out of curiosity, there's a quick little thing. How many people have a Steam account?
They won't give it back to me.
Damn.
I don't remember my password. I'm never good at it.
That's-
I don't really care.
No, but I got a bunch
so-
of games I want that I can't get because they won't let me reset my.
Everyone raised
They're
their hand, or most
so-
people raised their hands. Just
They're
so
so strict on it.
Absolutely.
Did everybody know that each and every single one of your Steam account has a numerical digit attached to it, which the order that it was made in?
Yep.
If you go into console, if you want to see what number your Steam account is, go into console, which is pressing the tilde in any random game and then type status, and then it'll give you your Steam ID, which is your number, and they're listed in the number that was created. So if you were the third person to make a Steam account, you're going to be 03. And I think they're up to, I forget what number it is, but they're up to 10-digit numbers. What is that? Million, tens of million?
Wow.
That's million? It's something. So they're up to 10-digit numbers, so that's how many Steam accounts have been made.
I got
Random little thing.
I have a very early one because on like day 1 for Steam, I was like, oh, I'm all into this, and then it didn't turn on. But I had the account, but it didn't turn on for like 3 days. It was neat. It's better now than it was in the past. Something I do want to mention,
Okay.
Stadia, right? Stadia is the bane of the existence of this entire convention. I think everyone is scared of it.
It's a streaming service by Google, right?
Yeah, that's all it is.
I'm not scared of it. I just think it's stupid.
I think the way that they've gone about this is backwards. Well, the launch game on the platform is going to be Destiny 2. How many people here play Destiny 2? Okay, so that's going to help them out a bit. Now, when you go to start the game, what platform are you on right now for Destiny 2? PC?
Yeah.
Okay, so you download the game. Your PC's running all that power, like all the graphics and everything. You're connecting to a server, and then that information is being sent back to you. And there's that. Okay, with Stadia, you're connecting to their server, which is connecting to another server.
Connected up on G. As well.
How did they not like? There's no possible way it's going to run faster than you running it at home at this point, and that's their launch game. Like these are
They
the
don't care about
problems.
it. They just don't care. That's not. I don't think that's their. In their mind, that's not their audience. I don't think it matters to them.
I really don't think it does, but I don't think they grasp exactly just how bad things are going to be when it comes to all those games, all those digital things that exist online on their servers. And then they're talking about how, oh, we're going to make games exclusively for Stadia that use our gigantic servers to play. How much power per one person playing a game is that going to cost?
Surely you would think it would take less data to just put the necessary data for the game to run locally.
You would think.
Than to stream video? Like, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but that doesn't, I do not understand how.
Video and do it on their servers.
Because they're talking about like saving the planet, saving energy, yeah? Okay, I've got a wristwatch that can play Pac-Man. How much power are you taking to run Stadia, regular old Pac-Man? That amount of data, that amount of electricity, that amount of everything, just, even their controller has to be online. It's insane.
Well, it's like the...
Big fan of
We're not talking about a rack full of home PCs. We're
Yeah.
talking about, you know,
What's that?
99.9 uptime
Okay.
servers.
Yes.
Like,
And Google's got a lot of money, so you know.
We have 1 minute left, unfortunately. The only other thing that I wanted to bring up is Apple. They recently released their thing, the Apple Arcade. So you guys know you can play the new Shantae game. The first part of it, they're releasing it in patches. If you want to play Choo Choo Rocket, they made a new game for Apple Arcade. So let's just say, argument's sake, the games never get ported anywhere. Like, that's how they're treating all this media. As it's just going to disappear, and that's kind of, it's disposable. So those games that are being created exclusively for these platforms aren't being ported elsewhere, at least at this point in time. So I think we don't have time for questions, unfortunately. Yeah, so I figure we'll just go through again one more time, whatever your name of your channel is. So, Paul.
Retro Gaming Arts, it's all about how to fix video game systems, how to mod video game systems, learn how to solder, learn everything about how I started a business, all that jazz.
My Life in Gaming, and if you want to know more, I think I'm going to be moving over to Panel Room B or A, I'm not sure which.
Shane from Re-Res and Hot Take, we look at bad games, good games, and a lot of bad consoles.
YouTube.com/dongled. Dude, you haven't played this game. XVGM Radio, Noob Repair, and Gaming Linguistics are all on the Dongled channel. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming. What do you mean?
well,
Oh, you mean like...